Most influence doesn't look like influence at all. A single unrequested favor measurably increases your willingness to comply with a later request. When a group confidently states a wrong answer, 75% of people conform at least once. These aren't tricks. They're hidden psychological forces shaping your decisions, relationships, and trust every day. And the line between genuine connection and manipulation is thinner than you think. We tend to think of influence as a series of deliberate campaigns, pitch decks, political speeches, or high-stakes negotiations, but those are merely the most visible peaks. Beneath them lies a continuous current of everyday communication, where subtle choices in how we speak, listen, and align ourselves quietly guide the behavior of those around us. At its core, influence is simply the process of shaping thoughts, feelings, or actions through communication and relational cues. It is the default setting of human interaction, operating continuously rather than during isolated moments of high pressure. By moving past the vague intuition that we are simply affecting one another, we can identify a precise framework. Every shared glance, shift in vocal tone, or structured choice of words acts as a relational cue. These signals do not force a response. Instead, they establish a quiet context that makes certain decisions feel natural, cooperative, and entirely our own. Understanding this mechanism is the first step in recognizing how we navigate our daily social lives. The capacity to shape human decisions establishes a clear, necessary boundary between constructive communication and psychological capture. This spectrum is defined by three distinct practices: influence, manipulation, and coercion. Manipulation is marked by hidden motives, pressure, and the pursuit of one-sided gain. In this space, one person quietly directs another toward an outcome they would otherwise reject, exploiting cognitive vulnerabilities while keeping the true objective concealed from view. Beyond manipulation lies coercion, the hard edge of human interaction. Coercion bypasses communication entirely, relying instead on force, direct threats, or the systematic deprivation of personal freedom. Under coercion, the recipient complies not out of voluntary agreement, but out of sheer necessity. Ethical influence, by contrast, operates under strict parameters of consent, absolute transparency, and a consistent respect for individual agency. It rejects the concept of control. Instead, it offers honest disclosure, providing the recipient with the full autonomy to accept or reject any proposal freely. This critical distinction serves as the moral baseline for all human relationships. Recognizing these boundaries ensures we remain aware of the line between constructive guidance and psychological dominance. Sociologist Alvin Goldner defined the reciprocity norm as a fundamental human rule. We feel a strong social obligation to return favors. In 1971, researcher Dennis Regan demonstrated how easily this obligation is triggered. In his classic experiment, individuals who received an unsolicited soft drink from a stranger later purchased twice as many raffle tickets as those who received nothing. 67% of those who received the drink complied with the request, compared to just 31% in the control group. A small, unsolicited gesture changes the dynamic, lowering the recipient's psychological resistance. When we decide how to respond to a request, we also evaluate the source. In 1951, Karl Hovland and Walter Weiss demonstrated that messages from highly credible sources produce far greater agreement. This credibility is rooted in two distinct attributes: perceived competence and honesty. When a speaker is viewed as both knowledgeable and trustworthy, the listener's natural skepticism decreases. These twin forces show that constructive influence does not succeed by overpowering another person. Instead, by offering a genuine gesture or demonstrating honest expertise, the communicator lowers the natural barriers to agreement, allowing cooperative decisions to occur voluntarily. When people are uncertain, they look to those around them to determine what is normal. In 1951, Solomon Asch demonstrated that 36.8% of participants conformed to an obviously incorrect majority on simple visual tasks. This reliance on social proof explains why descriptive norm messages, such as sharing the towel reuse habits of past hotel guests, increase compliance to 44%. Visible peer behavior acts as a cognitive shortcut, signaling the correct action to an uncertain observer. Beyond group alignment, influence travels through shared feeling rather than argument. When a storyteller shares an emotionally resonant narrative, functional brain imaging reveals neural coupling, where the listener's default mode network synchronizes with the speaker's brain within 3 seconds. Neuroscientist Paul Zak discovered that these moving stories trigger a 30% spike in oxytocin, which directly fosters empathy and cooperative behavior. Ultimately, narrative connection shapes choices by quietly aligning our sense of belonging and identity. In the workplace, these mechanisms operate without formal scripts. A manager who openly shares project challenges and admits when a deadline is missed builds immediate trust, shifting a team's willingness to collaborate far more effectively than any administrative mandate. In a classroom, a teacher relies on structured predictability to foster learning. Simple, consistent daily routines and clear academic expectations create a stable environment, providing students with the psychological safety required to speak up and take intellectual risks. This pattern carries over directly into commercial spaces. Within marketing, consumers increasingly reject high-pressure campaigns, seeking instead verified expertise and transparent disclosures. Seeing a developer's actual technical credentials or noticing a clear, upfront sponsorship label builds authentic credibility that outlasts any polished sales pitch. At home, the same principles quiet the chaos of family life. Rather than resorting to arguments, parents who establish consistent evening rituals lower daily friction, creating a calm environment where children naturally become more cooperative and open to guidance. Even our closest friendships depend on these quiet patterns. When a misunderstanding occurs, a single, brief moment of direct honesty, simply admitting an error without an elaborate, defensive justification, resolves tension and strengthens the relational bond far better than a lengthy debate. These everyday settings demonstrate that influence is the steady undercurrent of our normal social systems. It operates continuously through the practical choices we make every day, quietly shaping how we connect, work, and live together. The boundaries of healthy communication become visible when influence is stripped of deceptive practices. In August 2024, the Federal Trade Commission enacted a comprehensive ban on paid, undisclosed online reviews and inflated metrics. This regulatory action addressed a fundamental reality. When social proof is fabricated, the collective trust that enables normal human cooperation collapses. Legitimate influence does not seek to establish control over others. Instead, it respects individual autonomy through a 4-part framework of intention, transparency, proportionality, and feedback. Under this model, the speaker's intent must be mutually beneficial. Transparency requires that motives and incentives remain fully disclosed. Proportionality demands that a request fits the scale of the relationship, while a clear channel for feedback allows others to decline or raise concerns without penalty. When these boundaries are violated, cooperation stops. Yet, research shows that honest, active accountability can repair strained relationships. In organizational trust studies, leaders who openly took responsibility for an overreach, retracted unreasonable demands, and invited team feedback saw a 15% improvement in trust scores during subsequent audits. This restorative process proves that rebuilding cooperation depends entirely on honesty rather than cleverness. When individuals choose accountability over self-preservation, they transform a moment of failure into a foundation for more resilient communication, showing that true influence is built on mutual respect. Every everyday interaction leaves an invisible footprint. Ultimately, understanding these quiet dynamics isn't about gaining control. It is about fostering conscious, ethical connection. How we choose to connect shapes the social fabric we all share. Join the conversation in the comments below.